Shooters Connection offers products for competition shooters by competition shooters. With over 80 years of combined competition shooting experience, Shooters Connection is staffed by master and grandmaster shooters who live the shooting sports every day. We offer same-day shipping. Shooters Connection also sponsors over 100 of your matches every single year. So when it comes to finding everything you need to compete as a beginner or a seasoned grandmaster, Shooters Connection is the only name you need to know. Online at shootersconnectionstore.com.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Hit Factor. We have a banging crew tonight. Mr. Jeff Cawthon putting down his aspartame cancer juice, looks like. We have Mr. Potato.
This is
what is it?
Key lime vanilla flavored water. Yeah, there's no aspartame in here, unfortunately.
I'm shocked. I'm shocked at that. Mr. Potato from Maine, and myself, the fake Jeremy Reid. We have the fake and the real Jeremy Reid tonight.
From Texas.
I guess the real Jeremy Reid does have a pretty banging mustache too. He just kind of covers it up with the beard. I think real Jeremy should cut the whole beard off except for the mustache. Just go a straight mustache.
When was the last time you saw your chin?
I've threatened my wife with that many times.
What, Jeff?
When was the last time you saw your chin?
I was clean shaven in 2016 for like once, and I was clean shaven in 2007 once, and other than that, it's 1999.
Oh my gosh!
Wow,
that's
impressive.
That is. I think we can all aspire to be more like that. I don't know if our wives will appreciate that, but we can aspire to be more like that at least.
When I did last shave, my wife would wake up during the night and feel like there was a stranger in bed next to her, and she's like, let it grow back. That was 15 years ago.
Oh, man. Yeah. If, for the video viewers on YouTube, I couldn't cover my face if I wanted to, because you can see the tiny little stubble that's on my chin, and that's it. Because everything over here, there's too much Indian in my blood. I'm sorry, Native American, not Indian. We can't say that, right?
I'm pretty sure you can say whatever you want. That's the whole point.
I don't know. Jeff basically lives in the middle of a reservation, so he knows what's probably right or not right.
I live in Chickasaw Choctaw country.
Yeah. So, but he's not correcting me, so I guess I'll say whatever I want. All right. So, last weekend, big match up in Billings, Montana. I really wished I could have gone to this match, and apparently I should have just got on the wait list, because it was Area 1, and Area 1 did what was a little bit unique this year in that they opened up to Area 1 residents only for the first, month of registration. I don't know how long it was. We'll just call it a month. And before they open it up to anybody outside of Area 1, which that's unique. It's unique. It's Area 1 championship, so it should have Area 1 residents be able to shoot it. And it sold out to Area 1 residents before it opened to anybody else. And so I kind of just took it off my radar. It's like, man, if that's the case, there's no chance of getting in. Well, after looking at results and stuff, apparently there were a lot of people that got in that were not from Area 1. And maybe there were some sponsor slots that a lot of those were on, but there were quite a few names that were not Area 1 residents. And I know my buddy Bob, who we'll talk about later, he got in, and he actually signed up fairly late on the wait list and still got through on the wait list. So I think there's, I guess, a lot of people out there that sign up for matches. They think they want to shoot and then don't end up being able to make it. And that kind of makes sense. Sign up for everything you think you want to, and then pull out later, I guess. Just because that's the only way to
usually
have
you're
an
out
option.
some percentage of your match fee at that point.
Yeah, usually so, depending on how early or late you pull out. Usually you've got a bit of a grace period, and then once it's close to match day, you're giving up 50% or maybe even all of it. You may not even get any of your match fee back. So, but it was Area 1 match. There were some really fascinating results there. Real quickly, Aaron Edens won open, and Eric Steiner was second. I'm going off memory right now. Eric Steiner was second at, I think, 95%-ish.
Oh, Steiner was third.
Steiner was third. Sammy Nelson was second, also at 96%, basically.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I guess I didn't see that result. We did have Casey Eusebio. Well, again, this is the second major match, or it's continuing a trend where Casey Eusebio won limited optics and beat all the other carry optics shooters
by 8%.
By a lot. Yeah, this was actually, it kind of, I felt like Casey almost flew under the radar in this match. Kind of, he hasn't been shooting much lately, but then shooting LO, and there wasn't a lot of competition in LO for him necessarily. But yeah, he stomped the shooters in CO, and that's Tom Castro, that's Isaac Lockwood. Those are good. They're good shooters. They're very, very quality shooters, and Casey shot really well. Wasn't he around 95% of Edens?
Of Aaron, yep.
In the overall?
I think he was second in the match in the overall.
Yeah, I had a buddy that went in and changed his hits to change his scoring to major. Okay, obviously he's shooting minor, but doesn't have a comp or anything, and he would have won the match by 2 or 3%, I think, if with that. So yeah, Casey actually shot a really, really good match. So I don't know, Casey's shoots for Taurus now, and is busy doing. Looks like he's busy doing sponsor things. He's a lot more active in the social media and hunting and that side of promoting that part of Taurus. And so he hasn't been
shooting
as
a Taurus,
active
though?
shooting.
Was he shooting a Taurus, or was he shooting a Limcat?
I'm pretty sure that was a Limcat of some kind. It was not a Taurus. So they might have said Taurus on the slide. That's been known to happen.
That used to be a thing in tennis. It used to be people would play with their favorite racket, and then they would get painted by their sponsor.
Yeah,
I was like, so and so swinging a Prince. It's like, that doesn't look like a Prince. Yeah,
so that happens. That happens in USPSA too, especially kind of in the guys who shoot. Well, historically in the past, the guys who shoot open but are sponsored by kind of a factory gun type person will get a gun built and then put their sponsor on the side of the gun type thing. So I don't know if this was monogrammed Taurus or not on the side, but the picture I saw, it was definitely, or video I saw, it was definitely a Limcat, which they're fairly distinctual.
Yeah, it's a Limcat, and he shows it's a Limcat in his Instagram. So
yeah.
Somebody sent me a clip of him just before the match doing some standards strong hand weekend, looking very, very sporty.
That's a cool looking gun too.
Yeah, so that was I thought that was a pretty notable performance. I hope we're gonna see some more of KC competing more in the future, because he's, I was talking to a buddy about KC. I don't think KC has been in our top 10 or 12 in our power rankings yet, and it's actually a little bit surprising because he's really, really good and has been historically really good in the sport. He just hasn't been super active lately in the past few years, and so yeah, I'd love to see him be a lot more active if he can. And then Nils won production, which was, no shocker. if I remember right, by quite a lot. I don't think there was anybody.
15%.
Okay, yeah, nobody pushing him. Nobody pushing him in production. But the interesting thing of note is Elias was there shooting single stack, and Elias actually finished ahead of Nils, with Elias shooting single stack major, Nils shooting production minor, obviously. So
Yeah, it's very interesting to see that, especially as we're coming up to nationals, to see someone who's going to be there. That like, honestly, since I've been in the sport, Elias hasn't been super active. Like, he shows up to nationals essentially, and in my opinion or my observation, he shows up late and unprepared, and so to see him show up at a match like this, I haven't seen him do it since I've been shooting, and to do this well. So I think it's going to make nationals very interesting, because that was a fantastic performance.
If he shoots like that at nationals, you guys should be scared.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, not scared, but interested.
Scared. Well, you should be scared, Jeff. Jeremy's got this, but you should be scared.
Elias doesn't scare me. I'm not scared of Elias. I've shot with him enough. But yeah, no.
So the only other match I saw him shoot this year was probably Western States.
He shot Western States. He shot Arizona Classic.
Okay. In this year?
Northern Arizona. Yeah, he shot that
this year. The Northern Arizona.
Northern Arizona Classic. Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure he lives or used to live, I'm pretty sure, like up in Prescott area. He didn't live in Phoenix. So no, he's been more active this year, and I feel like I thought I saw him at another match somewhere else, but I could just be misremembering. But he's been more active this year than I've seen him in a while.
So do you think that he has the same idea that we talked about when we talked about nationals, like the window's kind of wide open? Like, do you think that's what he's thinking?
Yes. 100%. Yeah. He has a world title in Classic, but he's never won nationals. And he's had a few opportunities where it has been a bit open that he hasn't capitalized. And like sometimes when he was maybe, the last couple of years that Rob won, Elias maybe should have been kind of the favorite going into that. And he, like you said, he kind of showed up and wasn't really prepared. And I don't know what his life situation was at that point with job or whatnot. That may have been other things that just basically showing up to the match was as good as he could do. I just don't know. But yeah, he hasn't won one, and so I think he very much wants one. You're also seeing you're seeing the influence at the top of our sport. You're going to be seeing the influence of the World Shoot and the qualifying teams for the World Shoot. There's going to be people that are interested in that, and so you're seeing them put in effort here, because like Bob Crow, I know is one, like he really wants to make the limited or standard World Shoot team, so he's putting in effort into it this year, and I think that's you're seeing from Elias. He wants to make sure he makes the World Shoot team. So he needs to, the last 3 years, nationals haven't meant anything as far as World Shoot qualifying points. It's been a long time since that has actually mattered for that. And
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, 2019 was the last time there was World Shoot qualifying match.
Yep. And so you're seeing that a little bit. And how people are preparing for nationals and just preparing to shoot. Like they want to be on top of their game because they want to make a World Shoot team. Like it's just a really, it's just a really, really cool experience. Whether you barely get in on a no-name division like Classic, like I did, or whether you are on the hottest contested division, I assume that's going to be production optics for the next one. I assume that'll be the deepest field, but like, it's just cool to make a world shoot team. And so I think you're going to see people preparing for that as best they can.
And that's going to be really interesting with IPSC Nationals coming 6 months apart, November and April. East Coast, West Coast. I mean, well, East Coast and then Arizona.
Right. And that it is very interesting because for the people who don't know how they do the points, you have 4 matches that are qualifying matches. The USPSA Nationals and IPSC Nationals in 2023 and 2024 per division. You kind of have to pick your division at IPSC Nationals, which one it's going to be. And they will take your total percentage of your 3 best scores from those matches. And so it's actually pretty interesting because oftentimes your scores, you really need to shoot the IPSC Nationals because there's less heat at that match, because it's really only the people that are vying for those spots, and not all the best shooters are always vying for those spots in all the divisions, right? Like, so classic IPSC Nationals Classic tends to have less heat in it. There may be a lot of good shooters, but less top end heat than single stack Nationals might have. And so you really kind of got to pick and choose, make sure that you're shooting the IPSC matches, because that might be your best chance to get the most points. To get two
and the people who want production optics slots, so you go to Carry Optics Nationals with 500 shooters, and I would say 50% of the best shooters in the game shot the last Carry Optics Nationals. You really want to go to those IPSC Nationals matches because they're going to have to spread out across the other divisions they're interested in.
Correct.
And so you're going to have a much, much thinner production optics field. And so those 2 IPSC Nationals are way more important than trying to pick up the points from Carry Optics Nationals.
Yeah, very much so. And it makes it really interesting how they pair up or don't pair up USPSA Nationals matches. Makes it really interesting on that front. And why I wish they had a more consistent layout for what they did year to year on that. Just my own personal selfish reasons there.
Well, I think the production optics team will be settled by next June because you will have had the 2 USPSA Nationals and the 2 IPSC Nationals all in one calendar year.
Are they doing CO Nationals in June again next year? Has that been announced?
Not officially, but that's highly rumored by our very porous board.
That's really, honestly, it's really too bad for the CO guys. I feel for you guys. I guess what they'll do is they'll have CO in June and then have LO later on. So then all the CO people just get 2 nationals. That makes sense.
There you go.
Well, we maybe we can figure out a way to get a 3rd.
Right, maybe so. Well, we have IPSC, I guess. Then there's IPSC where they can do that. So anyway, that's an interesting thing to be watching this year, which really brings us to what was the deepest and I think the most interesting division, which was limited at Area 1. And Joey Sauerland continues his trend.
Yep.
He's as far as like power rankings and whatever go, there's nobody that's honestly hotter right now in the country than Joey Sauerland, is at least with an iron sight gun. He's won every area match so far this year. Am I correct?
You are correct.
Isn't that right? So, and the previous area matches in limited, okay, maybe they weren't like the deepest fields, but he had legit competition here. Joey Sauerland was first at 100%, John Browning at just under 96%, Robert Crow at just under 95%, Gianni Giordano at 92.5%. Like those are some big names, and Joey just shot, and he was he was fourth overall.
8 seconds, and he's 8 seconds faster than anybody else in the division, and he shot as many points as everybody underneath him.
Yeah, and he was fourth overall in the match at 95.5% of Aaron Eden's shooting open. That's pretty ridiculous to be honest at that point.
I think he won 8 of 14 stages as well.
He won 8 stages. I know Bob won 3. I didn't look to see how many Browning won. I would be surprised. Browning's got 1. Browning's got 2. And I would probably assume, without looking, that Gianni had the other one. But
you are correct.
Yeah, so I mean, hats off to Sauerland. He's shooting really well. We need to have him on the podcast. Just talk about his shooting. Talk about his. Jeff wants to talk to him about bodybuilding more than shooting, I think.
I mean, I am interested to hear his like physical training and how he think it has impacted his shooting. I would suspect that he's quite positive about it, but I do think it would be a good conversation. As like really at the top end of the sport, everybody's in like decent shape, but no one's like a fitness freak, I guess is what you could say. And you know, that might just be because it takes a certain amount of time and dedication to a certain thing to get good at it. And if you're doing that to shooting, it's hard to also do that to fitness. So that could be a reason. But I would say like at the top end of the sport, he's probably like the fittest dude at the top of the sport right now. So it would be a good conversation to have with him, I think.
He could be. Yeah, I don't know. I know that he was into bodybuilding prior to shooting. I don't know if he still maintains that. I don't know.
Yeah, we just need to get him on.
But yeah, incredible performance from him, for sure. John Browning, I still say I don't think I've seen anybody finish second place more at a match than John Browning. I mean, just consistently, he is just always shoots really solid and is right there, but is usually second place. And I'd still love to see him win a Nationals. I would really love to see him win a Nationals. And then we got my buddy Bob is third. And look, Bob, I'm going to talk about Bob because I can talk about Bob and because I can talk more because I've talked with him since he shot the match and stuff. But I said it before, he's going to be a problem for the limited shooters. And I know he's sitting at 5.5% back, and it looks like he kind of got, you know, that he wasn't all that close. But his day 2, he shot completely even with Sauerland on day 2. He had 3 stages on day 1 that were at 75%. One of them was his first stage of the match, and it was a plank stage. And there was a 2x6 that was his vantage point was, it was basically a 2x6 that was just sitting directly on the ground. And he hung a toe off of the end of it and got a procedural. And he's spending the whole time trying to not hang a toe off of it. Well, when you have basically a size 18 shoe, a 2x6, it don't fit on a 2x6, especially if it's only 1.5 inches or less off the ground at that point.
Yeah. That would be tough.
Which actually, so this is a frustration. That stage should have been thrown out because there was a guy on that squad that shot it, and he ended up shooting a position, and there was a toe hanging down or a heel that was touching the ground, and they gave him a procedural. Well, they gave him a procedural for every shot fired. That's not a correct ruling on that. He wasn't like bracing himself. He wasn't like taking a wider stance. He wasn't gaining a sort of competitive advantage. That's one procedural per occurrence. That's not a procedural per shot fired. Well, the ROs on the stage did, and they called the RM because the guy that did this was like a C-class shooter. He didn't know, and Bob's sitting there telling him like, "Hey, you need to call the RM. They're gonna hang you for a whole bunch more procedures than you have." They call the RM. I think it was Carl Schmidt, if I remember right, and he's like, "No, it's a one procedural per occurrence," and that's how they scored it. And the RO was like, "Well, that's not how we've scored it the whole match. We've been giving it a procedural per for the whole match." Well, at that point, that stage has to get thrown out. Like it should have just been instant and immediate. As soon as the RO said that, the stage is gone. It's inconsistent and incorrect scoring across it.
They had been scoring the procedure for each shot.
Each shot,
correct.
Yep.
Okay.
And in an instance like that, that's what the rules around significant advantage is, the rule book language.
Mm-hmm.
And so without a significant advantage, then violating the fault line is a single procedural.
Yeah.
It is not a per shot. That's one of the most misunderstood and misapplied.
Yeah.
Foot faults in general are kind of the bane of my existence, because almost every single procedural I've seen given, it conferred no advantage to the shooter. It was just a low fault line, or the ground had piled up, or it was wet and it was slick. I mean, and so they weren't in control of their body, and it's their responsibility to know the fault lines. It was really poor stage construction, and they touched, the floor is lava, and they touched the floor.
Yeah.
Like, it didn't affect their shooting positively in any way.
Yeah.
Right.
At major matches.
Yeah, and that's honestly that's kind of my issue with this one. This is really on the stage setup crew, and that they built a plank stage where the plank was virtually on the ground. It's like, you got to, if you want to have that much of a distinction, you got to give them at least 3 or 4 inches. You got to build that up a bit so that there's at least a decent distinction between where the ground is and where that plank is. In my opinion, I think this.
You get somebody with big feet, and they're
right,
their foot's going to wrap around that plank. Give them a little bit of height so their toes don't drag the ground.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right. And apparently, that stage had some really difficult shooting as well, like 20-yard zebra targets when you're trying to balance on a plank type deal. Again, I wasn't there, but that was the report that I got. But Bob is, it's interesting. This was interesting because I was talking with Bob. Bob he had some physical stuff with his back, and kind of just took a little bit of a break from shooting a few years ago, and hadn't shot a whole lot. And again, the whole IPSC thing and World Shoot Slots coming out, but he has a pretty interesting perspective because he came into the sport and pretty much, maybe not quite the trajectory that Sauerland's on, but he went he shot nationals. He walked on to nationals when you could do that, like in Vegas. He walked on, actually shot on the B super squad, but shot his way onto the super squad and has never shot. The only time he's not been on a super squad at a nationals because he had missed the previous year's nationals. Otherwise, he's always shot into his way into a super squad. So he's had a really good look at the top of the sport, and he's like, man, like the speed that the kids are shooting at nowadays, like it's different than it was 10 years ago. Like what was winning in this sport 10 years ago is not good enough. Like, you have to be faster. You have to take risk. And so that's, you look at Bob's scores, and he's actually had quite a few deltas, which is really weird for him. It's because he's pushing, and he knows that. He's like, that's kind of where some of his arrows came from. I have to push to try to keep up with the Joey Sauerlands and the Scott Browns of the world. Like, they're really fast. And so it's pretty fascinating to hear that's the sport is progressing, which is really cool to hear.
Yeah, so at Area 3, we're gonna get to see Sauerland and Scott go head to head, right?
So limited at Area 3 is stacked. It's the same. You got the same 4 guys that were at Area 1. So you got Sauerland, John Browning, Bob Crow, and Giuliano. They're all there. And then, man, I had the list typed up because I'd sent it to some people. Scott, Manny Bragg, Cody Axon, Paul Clark Jr., Brandon Ness. It's a deep field in limited.
That's the most I've seen in limited at an area match in a long time.
We could damn near do predictions on that field. That's deep.
Oh yeah, it's I love because limited is kind of since CO's takeover, limited has kind of been suppressed, and it's like, man, you get one person like Sauerland that's just really hot and really shooting well, and all of a sudden the division gets a whole lot more interesting, right? Because there's other guys who are really good in it, but but having one or two that are really good doesn't make it interesting. But then you have those people and you add a Sauerland to it, and then now we're getting to add Bob back into it, and that division is really interesting.
That's true though. Like, you get one person that's just crazy good and get them to do what Sauerland is doing in the division, like go across the country and shoot every area match and just pummel everybody, and it draws a lot of attention to the division.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting.
And those late season area matches, if people weren't signed up, they're going to now because they want to shoot against the hotness. I mean, who doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, Sauerland, look, you don't talk about a perfect game, but let's start talking about it. He's won every area match so far. If he wins area 3, he's going to be almost the prohibitive favorite for nationals in limited as far as who I've seen signed up. And, so could he win all the area matches and nationals in limited? That would be a really impressive feat. I don't know if he's signed up for area 2 or not, but
I'm sure he is at this point. When you have an unbroken area streak, you got to sign up for the last one.
I think so. And
who's hard to get into?
I know he signed up for area 8. Yeah, area 8 in last weekend of August.
Okay, I was wondering what the other. He is signed up for area 8.
He was last I checked.
Yeah, so area 2 is hard to get into. I would guess he's got enough connections at this point. He's still relatively new, but I would guess he's got enough connections at this point he can get a slot into it.
I'm sure MPA can find a slot.
Yeah. There's definitely a way to make that happen. So I'm really looking forward to that race at area 3, and we'll get to see a bit of it. I mean, we'll see. We'll have Bob on our stage. Scott Brown, I think, is a squad behind us at area 3. So we'll kind of be able to keep tabs on him as well. And yeah, that's gonna be fun to watch.
That is.
So speaking of area 3, it's gonna be the hotness. Jeff and I are racing, and that's gonna be interesting. Because Jeff is shooting major. Yeah, well, yeah, there's the duathlon aspect. Jeff's shooting major. I'm shooting minor. I don't know how much we covered of that before. But that's going to be an interesting wrinkle as far as, like, we're shooting head-to-head, but we're shooting different games a little bit, right? Like, we're not...
So I got a question for you first then, Jeremy. Do you take advantage of minor in terms of strategy, not just in terms of recoil mitigation and like the security, but in terms of strategy? Are you looking at places where you're saying, "Hey, I'm shooting to 11 here because I can"?
I don't know if I'm gonna I don't know that I'm necessarily gonna try to shoot to 11, unless it's just an opportunity where you kind of have to. I try to avoid that. Like, if I'm shooting major, I avoid shooting to 9. If I'm shooting mine, I'm going to avoid shooting 11. If I'm shooting limit, I'm going to avoid shooting a 21. If I can, or 22. But sometimes you
And if
just got to do
shot
it.
open, you'd avoid shooting to 29.
Exactly. So I'm not necessarily going to be looking for. I'm not going to try to force that issue, but I will be surprised if there are not just places where Jeff ends up with a few extra reloads throughout the match because he's shooting major. And there's probably I'm hoping the stages have come out, but I haven't looked at them. I'm hoping there'll be places where probably maybe I can blend some positions a little bit more because I'm not having to make that mag change, or I can make it in a little different place. Just having those extra 2 rounds, you can, maybe take a target coming in or coming out that you can't because you don't have the rounds to do that. So that's kind of is a hope that you see, but you never know how the stage setup comes out. It just depends on how the stage setup is. I've seen some matches that I thought, man, this is a massive advantage for a 10-round gun, and I've seen some that's like, it doesn't matter if you have 10 rounds. You're shooting the exact same plan as the 8-round guys, no matter what. So,
if you're shooting the same plans as the 8-round guys, I'd be mad at the stage designers because that means they've created a bunch of 8-round positions.
Correct. Right. Yeah.
And if there's not 3 and 5-round positions, and then 3 where you start thinking about where you can connect things, where you can keep the gun up, where you can sort of have the gun on your eye line as you're doing a short shuffle, where if it's shoot 8, reload, and you have to do that with a production gun or a single stack minor gun, that's a little disappointing. You don't want to see that at a major match.
No, and Hopkins was in charge of at least the stages. I don't know if he's MDing the whole match, but I think he's at least in charge of the stages this year. So I expect the stages will be good stages. I don't think they're going to be. I just expect that they're going to be good stages coming from Matt. So yeah, that's the hope. Where it gets tough is, man, those Charlies add up fast, right? Like they really. I mean, shooting as major, shooting major, you can shoot a lot of Charlies. And then you shoot minor and you shoot just a couple Charlies and you're like, dang, he still shot better points than I did. I only had 3 Charlies. And it's like, well, that is the challenge.
Yeah, skip your next 5 Charlies and just tag a no shoot and it's all the same.
That's true. Where it hurts is, like you shoot a stage, you shoot it pretty well, but you just keep having those edgers, right? Those ones that are just half inch out, and you end up with like 8 or 9 Charlies. You have like 12 alphas, 8 or 9 Charlies, and it's like, I literally have a miss worth of points down.
Right. You're like, well, it better be fast.
You're right.
Well, when they're all edgers like that, it's not fast enough. Nobody's fast enough in minor to shoot half and half.
Not usually.
I mean, not in a not against competition.
Right. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting, I think, to see, because Jeff was talking before the show that we haven't ever done this before, where I was minor and he was major. So that'll be kind of an interesting dynamic into it. I'm loving it because Nils is on our squad. He's shooting production, so he's 10 rounds minor. I can just shoot Nils' plans. I don't have to come up with stage plans. I'll just, whatever Nils does, I'll just do that.
A little bit.
Nils is out there thinking, I'm just going to do what Jeremy does.
Yeah, it's actually not true. Well, that Nils is going to do anything, or that I do everything Nils does, because sometimes Nils does stuff that is like, yeah, Nils can do that. I'm not shooting that plan. The risk reward is maybe not worth it for me with that plan, so maybe I won't shoot it, or I just don't have the ability. Like, just plain out, don't have the ability to shoot it quite like he does.
I am stoked to have you, McLean, and Nils to reference hit factors with, like, the whole match. I can see like times and hit factors for every single stage. That's like, if nothing else, it's going to be a great training match. Yeah. It's going to be a lot of good feedback.
Yeah, you're going to walk off every stage as a squad knowing where it stands. There's nobody else shooting somewhere else that is likely to move that around much.
Right.
Yeah.
For low cap, yeah, you can just put not even just single stack, but for low cap, yeah, you'll know kind of where you're sitting for the whole match, which is cool.
Jeremy gets really, like, you pay a lot closer attention than I do to that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of, like, I'll hear what the scores are. It's like, oh, you won this one barely, and then I'll like go to the next one. Okay, I won this one comfortably, and then I'll just go on like that, and I'll just kind of get a
This is an
feel.
interesting example you choose.
Right, exactly. But it's
very.
But that's kind of how I gauge a match. Is like I don't really math it. I just kind of go off feel, and it's like, okay, well he kind of won that one. I kind of won this one. I lost that one.
So if you get rid of winning and losing, and you just think about and I know you don't want to do the math, but if you just think about every stage is just match points. It's not winning or losing. It's not percentage, just match points. And you're all shooting the same time, more or less, right? With the people you're competing with, then your points down are your match points down. Because you can, again, not when there's 3 or 4 people, but you say in the nationals, someone is going to shoot that time with basically clean points, right? So whatever the time is, whatever your points down, that's how many match points you dropped on that stage. And if you did that tally alone, you'll be within 1% of where you are at the end of the match.
Really? That's some
in a big match. If you're at the top, that doesn't work if you're not at the top. That's not true at all if you're on track to finish 75%.
Right.
But if you're
somewhere in the top,
the time is the time. Whatever points you're down, that's how many match points you lost.
Right. So
you shot 4 Charlie, you dropped 4 points.
Right. That's pretty interesting. But no, I don't track it that close. I'll just kind of go off feel, and then since it is split into 2 days, I can like recalibrate at the beginning of the second day and know where we're at going into that day, and then go off for feel again. But Jeremy will probably know where we're at, going into the last couple stages.
And I hope it's tight. I really do. I hope it's with John too. I hope it's really tight where you guys have to make decisions about risk and what you're going to do.
I hope that I will know, like going to the last 3 stages, I'll kind of want to know where it's at.
And not have Jeff lie to you about his hit factor on a stage.
Correct. That is
never
correct.
Happen. I'm sorry. You guys haven't mentioned that in a while.
No, but don't worry. That's in the back of my mind.
It's like,
what'd you get on that one, Jeff? It was 9 seconds, down 2.
Yeah,
he's not even gonna ask me anymore. He's just gonna go look.
I'm gonna look at the printout, and I can't remember if they will upload to the competitor app during the match.
It might be going straight to your email without a printout.
I hope so.
That would be cool if that's the case, because then I don't really need to track at all before the last few stages. And I'll be honest, in the past, I track scores fairly closely, but I'm not actually. It may surprise you if I'm not actually doing the math on every stage as far as what are the points down, but you can pretty easily get a sense. This was a big point stage, and Jeff was a half a hit factor higher than me, and then it was the next one was a short hit factor, a small point stage, and I was a half a hit factor higher than them. Well, okay, even though the hit factors look like we split it, he's probably still up 10 or 15 points, just roughly. And that I'm usually actually pretty close in doing just kind of that simpler version of math. I usually can be pretty darn close.
Do you round down for yourself?
No, I'm fairly honest with it, with what it is. But I'll be completely honest. I am I'm starting to get a point. I might make some people happy and some people mad with this revelation, like, because I was struggling with it at the Governor's Cup. Is I was wanting to race Bob. I was wanting to compare scores with Bob the whole time, and I was actually fighting with myself to simply, like, I'm here to try to prove. I'm trying to prove what I'm doing in practice. I'm trying to execute what I'm doing in practice here. I'm not necessarily trying to compete here. I'm just trying to execute that to the best that I can. And so I'm really trying to, even though we have this race going on, we have this competitiveness that's going on, and I love that part of it. I'm here for that part of it. But when I'm shooting, I'm really there while I'm shooting, I'm not shooting to beat you. I'm shooting to try to shoot as well as I can, to execute my process as best I can. And
oh, Jeff, what does that smile mean? Are you so proud of him right now, or are you heartbroken? I can't tell.
That's what I think. There's going to be both of that.
But you're feeling something, Jeff.
Oh yeah, I was just feeling how I was constantly going to bring up the competitive aspect of it, like the whole match. Now, that's what I was thinking.
Because he just said, "Hey, I have this open wound here. Please, be really careful around here. Don't bump me right here."
Hey, I'm trying to think about this in the aspect of, just doing my thing and doing my training. So yeah, it's like after every shot, every time someone shoots, what was your hit factor? Oh, okay, yeah.
But that's but countering.
Somebody's done this to you, Jeff. You've had somebody do this to you who is not in fact racing with you. You've had this happen, right?
That is not racing with me?
Well, they think they are. But they ask you after every stage, "Hey, what was your hit factor on that?" And at a certain point, you want to politely say, "Oh, no, my hit factor doesn't matter. You're not close to me in this match. You need to worry about your hit factor, buddy." Really? You've never had somebody who's asking you?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
We shoot with different people.
I mean, I ask people that all the time that I am not in the running with. Usually open and CO shooters. I'm shooting around.
They just want to know.
All the time. Even at majors, I'm like, "Hey, what was your time? What's your time on this? What was your hit factor?"
Well, yeah, you want to know what's possible.
Yeah. But anyway, I'll definitely be doing that to Jeremy. Hands down.
It's going to be all scores all the time.
I don't actually believe
Jeremy,
Jeff,
you're looking a little slow.
Right.
You should step on the gas a little bit, Jeremy.
I'm pretty sure I'll be quite aware of where the scores are at. I don't think I will actually be unaware. That would be. I just can't. I don't think I can. I don't think I can do that. Even if that is what would be best for me, I don't think I can do that. But
you just have to know. It's just who you are and how you are in the world. Is not knowing would cause more anxiety than whatever pressure knowing creates.
Maybe.
It would, yeah.
But hopefully the goal is that I get to where I can know where it's at, but I'm still just trying to do what I do. I'm still just trying to do. I'm still just trying to do my thing.
Your process is independent of that information. That information is something you're interested in knowing because that's just who you are in the world.
Correct.
You want to know things, and now you know this thing. But what you're going to do, on stage 7 is what you're going to do on stage 7.
Right.
So
that's.
Oh, yeah.
Do you want to share what you've been doing in training that you're proofing?
It's not anything groundbreaking. I am not doing anything crazy. So my training right now it's all stage scenario based. I've talked about it a lot in the past. I get 2 reps on something and then I change it and do something different. And the goal is that your first run puts pressure on your second run some way, somehow. Either your first run was really clean and it's like, okay, I've got to try to beat that, which means I have to be just as clean, but a little bit faster to beat it. Or even your first run, even if your first run was bad, that can still put pressure in your second run, because your second run's like, okay, I just have to shoot consistent. And that's a good pressure to have too, because sometimes that's all you need in a match is you just have to be able to shoot consistent. So there's that aspect of it, but it's just trying to stay focused on the fundamentals, which for me is mostly trigger press related, but it includes grip, sight picture, all of that other stuff as well, but it's mostly trigger press related, and trying to stay focused on that and executing that in the match. That was what in Wyoming, that was what I was disappointed that I was not able to execute that better. So I came away from that match thinking, okay, I need to get faster, which is true, but I also still don't know if I execute the fundamentals for an entire match, if I execute those well, where I'll end up. I still don't know that. I have a really strong
opinion, and I want you to tell me I'm wrong here, or Jeff can tell me I'm wrong, but I suspect it'll be more you. I think there's a sneaky thing that happens with scenario-based training that gives us distorted expectations. And what it is when you shoot a scenario and you change something every other run, if most of the things are still where they are, you're still getting essentially subconscious reps on the same shooting challenge.
That's true.
And so for me, at least, when I do short stages, I get comfortable. And then I shoot really well when I'm comfortable. And then I go to a match and I'm like, all right, let me do my process. And I have this one cold run. I don't feel the pressure, but the execution isn't that clean. And then I think, I've been shooting mini stages for the last month and the execution's been really clean. But that's because the execution on 9/10 of my mini stages are really like a subtle repetition, because I'm presented with similar challenges again and again. And it takes so much work to like dramatically alter it. I've started thinking, and somebody else put this idea in my head, for mini stages, I should set up a field of options, put out 20 targets, and I'm only going to shoot 4 of them. And so now there's something like genuinely different, right? And they're at different distances, and there's walls or obstacles. It's a little bit more upfront setup time, but when I set up like 2 walls, a barrel stack, 4 targets, and I drag them around and I change the start position, I think I end up really repping my way into subconscious performance instead of executing my way into subconscious performance.
Yeah, so that very much is an issue, and it's actually a big issue for me, because I can leave all my target stands all set up. And so then you go out and you set up targets, and it's like, do I want to drag these target stands around and move them? It's like, well, no, I kind of like where they are. I like the percentage of close targets and far targets that I have. Like, it always ends up with that same percentage. But what I've done differently this year than I've done in the past I've always used walls and fault lines. And so that will give you, yes, very specific shooting positions. But what I'm doing this year is basically using cones. They're actually wall stands. That how we use our wall stands. They're basically just a piece of steel that's a wall stand. But I use those as shooting positions. So then I can engage any target in my bay from any of those. So I can have the same target array that I can engage close, and I can engage it from a far position. I can game it from a side position. I can game it from a lot further away. So that's a way that I can address a little bit of your issue, because the challenge of why I don't like drills is because you learn what cadence you can shoot a drill at, right? Even if it's a long, complicated drill, you shoot it once and then you learn, this target I can split hard on this target, or I need to shoot slower on this, or this array of steel I need to be more stable on. Like you learn that, right? And so that's the challenge of then where that doesn't translate to matches so well. And this is a way to combat that a little bit. And I will say, I believe it has been effective. And today's practice was a really good explanation of that, because my first times versus my second times on my scenario stages, whatever you want to call that, I wasn't seeing a dramatic get faster. Even the very first one of the day, I wasn't seeing.
Do you have a number you put on that? Like roughly, like a ballpark?
As far as percentage of time? No, not really. But I mean, it's in the past, it would be very common to shoot a stage. And then the second time, I'm just going to assume that I'm going to be a second and a half fast. Like say it's a
I was about to say
12
second stage, yeah, and then you can get it down to 7 seconds. 12-second stage, you can get it down to 10 and a half just with one repetition.
Correct. Yeah. And so
now you're going out there and shooting it in 11, and then the second time it's 11 again, or it's 1090 or 11.2 or whatever. But it's
right. It's even sometimes even slower the second time. Yes. So I'm getting that execution higher on that first time through. So I think that has been a good thing for me is going to cones rather than walls. And I will every once in a while set up walls so that we have hard leans and stuff like that. But going more to cones and using just that as positions so that I can mix up without really having to move the target stands. I can mix up where I shoot stuff from. You can make wide transitions real easily that way, and so you can really kind of have a lot of variety with, you know, I'm hanging out probably 6 or 7 pieces of paper, and then I've got 7 or 8 pieces of steel that just kind of stay up out there randomly in the bay, and that's kind of what I'm working with right now. So
what,
Jeff,
Potato, what are your
I was answering your question.
Thoughts on that? Potato, what are your thoughts on what Jeremy just said? Like, does that resonate with you?
No, but we're also different. Like, it's not. I mean, in my short time playing this game, every time I'm pretty convinced now I know like what I need to be doing. 6 months or 9 months later, it turns out there's a whole domain of training I wasn't paying attention to that would have been very beneficial. So like I genuinely have no opinion on what other people need to be doing. I assume that people who are paying attention are probably responding to a need in their own training. Yeah. I know for me, my live fire this year hasn't been as productive in the past because I started doing a lot of mini stages where I'm just getting better at the kinds of challenges I present. And it sounds like Jeremy's thought about that and sort of why. What do you think about it, Jeff?
Yeah, so that's kind of what I was asking, is if that concept resonated with you, where like you set up this stage and you try to run it all these different cold ways, but you really end up, like you were saying, getting subconscious reps on the same challenges, and so not exactly achieving what you're trying to, essentially. But that makes sense to you, right?
As a way to get past that, or as a thing to do?
Just that concept that's an issue for you.
Oh, for me, absolutely. I'm like Jeremy. Like if I could just rep out progress and just mindlessly rep out progress, if it was just like chalking up miles, I would do that. Mm-hmm. The being mentally dialed in and really paying attention to what my hands are doing or my eyes are doing or my feet are doing, whatever it is I need to pay attention to, that's like real work. And it's hard to do for any length of time. I would so much rather just like pick the weight off the floor and then be stronger at the end of it. So yeah, it's always a challenge to figure out how to unoptimize my training, because I'll make it very efficient and just sort of groove along pathways that I've already built without really growing.
I was just listening to you guys talk about that, and I was thinking there's something very fundamentally different in the way that you guys approach, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain, training, I guess, or shooting in general, than the way that I do. Or I guess it's really in drills. When you said there's a reason you don't like drills, is because you get used to, okay, well, I can just shoot this cadence on this target kind of deal. And so that for me is what's like super fundamentally different in the way that I train. This is like, I don't ever have a lot of targets, right? Like the most targets I ever set up is 2 pieces of steel and 2 pieces of paper. I have no walls. I have no barriers. That's it. 2 paper, 2 steel, open field. And so my
Gravity
training
is your
is
berm.
yeah, there's a berm. Thanks.
No, it's gravity. It'll fall. Anyways, carry on.
um, so my training is always very much, it's very drill based, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But like for extended periods of time, I would go to the range and just set one target up. And it's because like my whole focus during a training session is like the fundamental. Like I don't ever get used to a cadence or anything like that because I'm hyper fixated on a trigger press, or I'm hyper fixated on the way that the slide is bouncing around, or something like that. So there's just, it was just interesting to me. I wasn't saying anything was wrong or right or anything like that. I just thought it was interesting, like the fundamental difference in training styles.
So what I hear you describing is sort of observational training, like you go and you shoot and then you pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
And then the way the slide's tracking bothers you or excites you, and so you want to do more of it or less of it, or the way the gun moves in your hand doesn't feel right, and so you attend to that. But you're not trying to accomplish something. You don't care about a result. You're shooting and you're paying attention, and then you're improving. Is that right? Like observational
Yeah,
training?
pretty much. Yeah, exactly. Like almost all of my training is just observational training. Like I have to really remember to even look at the timer, because usually the timer is like
I
I don't
have
really
to
care.
fight myself not to look at it. And it's like a really, really hard thing. And in my training benefits when I don't look at it. I'm like, don't look at the time. There's nothing you need to know because my brain wants to win. And so if I set up
Yeah.
a drill, I will cheat myself to win the drill. Like I will have the worst grip in the world because it's a good enough grip to get 2 shots. You know, if you want me to do 4 aces, I will find a way to biomechanically accomplish that faster. But I will learn nothing. I won't learn anything that's portable to a stage. I will learn how to succeed at that drill. Like even doubles, I will somehow cheat my vision, my grip, and my cadence to make the holes appear in the same spot in a way that's not repeatable in the stage context. Practical accuracy, trigger control at speed. You know, I cheated my grip. I didn't mean to, but doing trigger control at speed, I realized at a certain point I have a trigger control at speed grip that I don't use anywhere in shooting except when doing the drill, trigger control at speed, because it prevents my sights from moving at all when I press the trigger really quickly.
Interesting.
I didn't plan that. That's just how my brain works. It wants to optimize. And so if you give me a drill, I want to win it. And to do observational training takes like a lot of, I really have to set myself up for that. I don't just go to the range and that happens. If I go to the range and I shoot a drill, like I'm gonna make my time or my hits better.
So what is the type of training that you normally do? Like what would it be called if not observational?
No, I try and do observational training. And I try and put myself in context where I can pay attention to what my eyes are doing or my hands are doing. It just takes a lot of work. That's not natural to me. Natural, I want to rep out a drill and just get better at the drill. Like that feels comfortable. I mean, I want to train like you're describing. It just doesn't come easy to me. But like if I let myself, I wouldn't be competitive with the real fast build drill guys, but I would try. Like I would go to the range and shoot 30,000 rounds in a year just trying to shoot fast build drills.
Yeah,
that would be interesting to me.
Right. Yeah, I could easily do the same thing.
I could fall into that hole, so I don't shoot them like and look at the time. If I shoot a build drill, I'll look at what my dot was doing, or I'll look at the hits. I do not care about the time because otherwise I'll try and chase it lower.
That's interesting. So that's why I suck at Instagram shooting. It's because I'm not trying to beat the drill.
Apparently,
that's the core of Instagram shooting is winning drills. Yeah. There's why there's a lot of very good Instagram shooters, and some of them are also great shooters.
Yeah.
You can do both.
Right. It'd be nice to be able to do both, huh? Anyway, I think that's the first time I've actually, maybe not. Who knows? We've talked about training so many times, but I felt like the first time I picked up on that difference in our training focuses, I guess, and what you're thinking about when you're training and what you're trying to achieve and all that. Anyway, I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and the other thing that I'll say like is a benefit of what I've put focus on has been a benefit for me this year is the visualization aspect of my training, which is if you're doing the same drill over and over and over, you kind of lose that visualization aspect because it's just, well, I've already visualized this and I've actually already done it 20 times. So I'm going to do it another 20 times. You kind of lose that aspect of it. So I've really taken an opportunity this year to spend the time before every run really going through a pretty detailed visualization and practicing visualizing. Like that may sound weird, but that's something that I practice a lot is visualization, and I think that's been fairly helpful to me in practice. I haven't shot enough matches to see the benefit under stress, but in practice that has been very beneficial to me to be able to do that at that level. So that's another thing that I really like about it is getting to practice that part of it.
Do you do that, Jeff? Are you visualizing before a lot of runs and practice?
That is something that's very difficult for me. I don't do it a lot. I try to make myself do it more, but that is one thing that is very difficult for me to do is to like just stand there and visualize before I do it. Like I want to do something. I want to shoot rounds. I want to hold the gun. I want to do all these things. And like, it's hard for me to take the time to visualize, especially since I'm like, when I'm working around the house, when I'm shooting, when I'm going to the range, I'm always, and I've been trying to get myself to slow down, but I'm always in a hurry. I'm always like, get to the range, set up.
42 minutes, and I got to be out of here.
Yeah, it's like I'm always in a rush, and it kind of like keeps my anxiety just like keeps like peaking. Yeah,
no, that's the aspartame.
Yeah, probably lack of sleep, one of those two. So I'm already standing out there trying just to get myself to like breathe, like slow down. Like you're here to shoot. Stop rushing this. Like just you're here to do this thing. Why are you thinking about getting out of here? So then to take it a step further and just stand there and visualize is even harder. So yeah.
Can you visualize a drill as you're driving to the range?
Yeah. I've done that. Yeah.
Actually,
it's a great way to go to sleep. Just lay in bed and visualize the stage. I put this in the Discord a while back. It was when Jay was talking about visualizing. And so I wanted to practice visualizing. So in order to go to sleep, I just laid in bed and visualized my morning, what I was going to do when I got up. And so I visualized like every damn step that I was going to take. And it was like, I didn't even like make it to the kitchen and like mix up my pre-workout before I fell asleep. Like I was trying to visualize like swinging my cover off, first foot on the floor, walk to the corner, grab my phone, unplug it, drop the cord quietly, don't wake up the wife, walk to the door, make sure I don't trip over anything, close the door, use my finger to make sure I don't slam the door and make too much noise, turn. Dude, I visualized everything, and yeah, it put me right to sleep.
That's amazing.
That's good. That's a good trick.
So.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a great discussion. I hope people have got stuff out of this. I mean, I feel like we've covered stuff like this before, but I think visualization stuff is really important, but it is fascinating that how different people find ways to practice effectively. And there's lots of people out there who are practicing very inefficiently. But don't just take a class from one person and have them tell you this is how a good way to practice and assume that that's the most efficient way for you. I have wasted years of my career and hundreds of thousands of rounds trying to do stuff the way I thought other people were doing it rather than what made sense for me. And
what's crazy is you probably weren't even doing what they did to get as good as they are. You're doing a story they made up after they were good about how they think someone could be as good as them. It's not what they did. It's like movement. I remember this is years ago, not to pick on, but somebody was talking to Steger about movement. It's like, well, how did you learn like your entries? He's like, oh, box-to-box drills, but nobody's willing to do that anymore. So we've come up with these other methods. It's like, well, it sounds like box-to-box drills are a pretty good method. If you and like your whole cohort of people, if that's how Max and Travis learned their entries was box-to-box drills, maybe that is a really good way.
Yeah. Yeah. So like listen to other people, take tidbits from other people, like try to incorporate that stuff. But don't be afraid to do your own thing. Like how Jeff's describing his practice, I have practiced like that in the past, but it doesn't carry over. It doesn't stick. Like it's not effective for me as far as advancing my skill set. But obviously it works well for him. And so like I think that's an interesting part of almost anybody's journey in this sport is trying to figure out what works, but then also figure out what works for you.
Yeah.
So I was trying to train a couple of years ago with someone at a real similar sort of skill plateau, and it was just too frustrating because we'd get out to the range and everything about how we interacted with the range was different. And it's like, yeah, if I do what you're doing, there's no value. And you could tell like he was kind of irritated with me, like, this is what you do? Like, how are you sometimes beating me if this is what you come out here and do? I'm like, hey, man, I feel the same way. I have no idea how you're beating me with the nonsense you're practicing. But yeah, there's a lot of paths.
That's actually a really great strategy that I love is if you have somebody who's kind of close to you in skill set, go out and shoot with them, but they set up to practice and you practice their way. And then go out another time and you set up practice and they practice your way. Don't try to mix the two, but each of you shoot how the other person practices. And you may have some good feedback for them that can make their practice better. And they may have some for you, but you may learn something from how they practice, which could be really good. So I think that's, if you have that ability and that option to train with somebody close to your skill set, then that's a great way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I've done that a couple times. I hadn't got the opportunity to do it a lot, but a couple times. And it's always very beneficial just to get inside somebody else's mind. And it's like you're presented with a challenge that you couldn't come up with. I think that's kind of what I like about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, really? Yeah. This is what you do? Yeah. It's like, okay, I'll try and do it.
Let's go.
I also wonder. I have to wonder if Jeff's what I'm going to call limited practice, like as far as like his limited setup and all that, is somewhat just him adapting to his lack of resources.
I mean, it's not somewhat.
Well, this is like when you guys talked about round counts a few years ago, and Jeff's like, yeah, I shoot the rounds I have because it's like the primers I have and the time I have, not because like I thought 12,000 was the optimum number of rounds.
Right. Yeah.
Well, that is somewhat the question. Even if you had your own private bay in your backyard and you could have 100 targets set up at once, maybe for you, just having 2 or 3 targets and 2 or 3 pieces of steel is the most efficient way, because that's what works for you. And so you wouldn't need to have the whole elaborate setup.
Yeah, we'll never know.
Or you might find yourself getting distracted trying to create Instagram runs on your massive setup.
Yeah.
Trying to nail that perfect activator sequence with your 3 movers on your private range, spending 6 hours until you finally capture the run where you just hit everything at just the right time.
I can go in now.
Shoot 900 rounds to capture that one run. It's like training.
Yeah. But you're very right, Jeremy. Like, I practice that way because I pull up to the range and it's bare, and I have to drag everything that I'm going to shoot out of my truck and set it up. And I have limited time because I need to get home and all that. So it's very much a product of the way my life's set up. But I do wonder what would my training style be like. I mean, we'll never know, but that is an interesting question.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it is for sure. So, all right. Well, this has been a great podcast.
Well, you do actually have to quickly do your sponsor shout outs, if only to acknowledge the fact that Billy has kept a smile on all of our faces nonstop with his absolutely absurd humor and running commentary that no one else gets to appreciate, but we all see.
That is true. The comments in the chat tonight, I've just not been able to really comment with Billy or respond to any of it because like I don't have the capacity to have that conversation while I'm having this other conversation. But yeah.
Yeah, dude. One of those messages
Patreon shout outs, Jeff?
It was like the full freaking screen. I looked over there and I was like, I'm sorry, I can't read that right
now. Nope. Out on that one.
Billy wants us to reread his last shout out, which was, hold on, let me find it. Oh, shout out to the #1 Joel Park fanboy Instagram account, Mac and Pood. It's me. I'm Joel Park's #1 fanboy. Joel Park getting the shout outs. And Billy was the OG pay piggy because he was like the first one to pay for shout out. Or it wasn't even shout outs back then, was it? Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah,
it was shout out.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Anyway, Billy McScrublord, also known as @MacandPood on Instagram, joining us. Thank you, MacandPood. No, we don't have any other shout outs, but we do want to shout out Shooters Connection for sponsoring today's episode. So thank them for sponsoring and supporting the sport. Run by competitive shooters. They're doing same-day shipping. Got everything you need for competitive shooting. All your range supplies, all your gun parts. And so the Discord, we got like this real 1911 thing going on right now in here. So I'm thinking there's going to be some 1911 parts here bought pretty soon. But yeah, so support Shooters Connection and support the podcast. Thank you guys for everybody that's in the Discord, everything. Thanks for supporting us. And that's it for shout outs and sponsors. What else?
1911 single stack is going to be the busting division next year. I think it's everybody's favorite gun.
Yeah, well,
whether they admit it or not, it's everybody's favorite gun.
Yeah, I mean, you need to
do every gun I had a prejudice against, I end up enjoying. So when I got into guns as an adult, it's like, well, I don't want to like Glocks, and then you get a Glock, and you're like, man, actually, Glocks are pretty great. And you're like, wow, I'll get something that's G3 based. I don't want an AR. You get an AR, and you're like, oh man, yeah, ARs are great. Then you get 1911, and you shoot it in a match. You're like, oh man, 1911s are great. So it's like, oh man, all the popular things are popular for a reason because they're good. It's like people like vanilla ice cream because it's tasty. It's not bad.
But it's true,
Jeremy.
It's true.
You need
the
to
more people we can get shooting it, the better.
Yeah, you need to do what Sauerland is doing, and you need to run the area matches and build the hype for single stack. I can't do it financially, but you could do it.
I don't think I'm in that much difference of a financial situation to where I can shoot every single area match. Maybe financially,
you can do it. You can do
or
it.
we could split them up. Maybe like you could do 4 and I could do 4.
Oh, it's just the hit factor. That's the goal is for the Hit Factor podcast to win. Oh,
yeah, I mean,
that means we can't both shoot Area 3 though.
Name, but well, I guess you have to forfeit.
You know, if you could do the two of you do a single stack sweep, and then somebody's got to win nationals.
I mean, that would be fun if, cool. As the the whole podcast, we shot every area match next year. We need some new sponsors. I'm just
whichever one of you comes to Area 7, it won't be in my backyard anymore. So your chance for a free place to stay is gone. But it'll probably be in New Hampshire, which is a nice place to visit.
Yeah.
Oof, that's the other thing. Jeff, you can go to New Hampshire.
You gotta fly. You're not driving there.
No, I would not. I would not drive there. So, but yeah, that'd be cool. I would love to do that.
That would be cool.
So,
I think Mike Dixon will try and win them all.
Mike Dixon could win them all. I believe that. Mike is in the chat. So, anyway, thank you guys for listening. Be watching results for this will come out. Well, this will come out a week before Area 3. So, be ready to be watching those results. Limited's going to be hot. Watch the single stack race. That's going to be hot. We'll have results for and footage of the foot race, which we have not mentioned that tonight, but that foot race is coming up. We're getting prepared for that. This is kind of like the last week to get any gains in, I feel like, because the week of Area 3, you kind of gotta
just do a Scott Brown style and just be out there running 6 hours a day before the foot race.
The 3 days before it, just cram. That's definitely one where you could cram for, I think.
400 meters, often won by whoever crams the most for it. If you can get 20 or 30 400s in the day before, you
be great. Be great. All right. Thank you guys for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll try to respond to everything that we can. And talk to you guys later.
Peace.